Joe Robinson with House to Play. Today we're going to talk about the Gravois Arm of the Lake of the Ozarks to see if it's a good place to buy a lake house, make it an Airbnb or a vacation rental. Maybe it helps you afford that lake house and maybe even make you a little bit of money. Now before we get started, if you guys are lake lovers like I am and you like this content, please like, subscribe, follow, let me know, comment. It really does help. You won't get this type of analysis on the Lake of the Ozarks vacation rental market anywhere out there. I think I'm the only one doing this. And it's a market that's very interesting. It's a very unique place, as you know. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. As always, I like to start with this top-down view of the lake and point out just how many rentals there are. There are over 4,000. And when you look at the overview of the numbers, it's really not that impressive. These numbers don't really do anything for me from an investment standpoint, but that doesn't tell the full story of the lake for a number of different reasons. As I've discussed in previous videos, there's a lot going on in this market. What I really like to do is narrow in and focus on a certain section of the lake, like we're going to do here with the Gravois Arm. But we'll note a couple of numbers here. The annual revenue for the lake as a whole, 40.2K. Occupancy rate, 44. You can see the average daily rate of 345 and the RevPAR 153. If we move to listings, this is where you can see that there are over 4,000 in this large area, and you can see some additional details about those listings here. And we'll go ahead and switch over to the Gravois Arm now. I already have a filter pre-made. And once we apply that, we're now narrowed into this section of the lake, and you see that the revenue is 44.1K, which is a little bit above average of the entire lake. We're off to a good start, Gravois Arm. So let's go ahead and look at the listings on this data. And as you can see, we only have 220 active listings right now. When you have over 4,000 on the entire lake, and you have this is a pretty big geographic area, you only have 220, that's a pretty good sign that this part of the lake is not oversaturated. If I click on the top short-term rentals button, get your purple dots back, you can see that this is much more spread out than other parts of the lake. And just to show you what I mean, let me turn this filter off. Let's zoom in to Osage Beach. And you can see just these purple blobs that exist right here. And compare that to up here on the Gravois Arm, and it's not like that. And when you see revenue higher than the lake average and everything spread out, that should tell you something that oversaturation in one area does make a difference. Also, the type of unit, condo versus house, again, that's in other videos. So let's go back to our overview real quick and make note of our numbers. As mentioned before, everything's just a little bit higher. Good sign about this area. If we drill into the listing information, there's our 220. Folks, less than half a year on both Airbnb and Vrbo. That is a mistake. And I do find the bedroom breakout a little bit interesting, where one bedroom, two bedroom make up less than 25% of population in this area, and that's slightly lower than the lake average. And I note that, and I'll show you why a little bit later on, but there is some interesting data in here that you can review. You can see how the listings have been growing over the years, and this has been pretty consistent. We're not seeing crazy growth here, which is a good sign, because as the lake gets more and more popular each year, basic supply and demand says that as you get more demand and your supply is not increasing, that helps push these numbers up and up, particularly this RevPAR number, which is important because this is the average revenue, including your vacant nights, where the average daily rate only includes your booking. So what you might see in a very crowded area of the lake, listings go up, you get more vacancy, and it pushes this RevPAR number down, but we're not seeing that here, so this is good news. There's many different ways I can slice and dice this data. For example, let's say I want to look at only 4-bedroom and above. I can click up here on listing and move this to 4-bedroom, apply, and you can see what a dramatic impact that had on this number up here. But let's get a little bit specific here and go back to top short-term rentals. And let me remove this filter while we do that. And you can see up along the Gravois Arm here, we do have some pretty good performing properties. One's making over 100K, and you know, AirDNA thinks there's revenue potential even higher than that in some of these. But there are some very interesting units in here. For example, this 1-bedroom, 1-bath, sleeps 4 that is making 90K a year. Now, I don't know the financing behind this deal and how this property came to be, but a 1-bedroom making 90K a year is excellent. But you can see that there are further 3-bedrooms making 80K, and those are solid numbers for this part of the market. And what you want to do really is find a good performing property that is similar to yours and then click on it and figure out what they got going on to say, hey, what can I do to either match this or beat this? And that's just kind of how this works in a nutshell. So this is a very good listing here. Good job, Pamela Quinn, Lake Days Rentals, doing a very good job with this 3-bedroom. And you can just tell the pictures are great, and it just got everything you need to be a good rental. Before we go to wrap up, I want to show you one more thing in the top property section. I'm going to go back up and narrow this down to just 2-bedroom to see these smaller properties, because remember earlier I said that there appears to be less of the 1 and 2 bedrooms on this part of the lake than others, and there's our outlier there. But you do see another 1-bedroom made $41K, and then you got a 2-bedroom here at $40K. These are pretty solid numbers, hovering right around the lake average for these smaller properties that are a cheaper entry point to get into than some of the larger properties that may be a little bit much for you if you're just getting into this. Okay, let's wrap up and summarize. In total, there are over 4,300 listings on the entire lake, only 227 in the Gravois Arm. It is not oversaturated. Almost 40% of the lake is made up of 1 or 2-bedroom listings, while the Gravois Arm has less than 25% in that range. As we noted earlier, the Gravois Arm slightly outperforms the rest of the lake in all key metrics, which is good news if you're looking here. And the 3 key takeaways I find here: with only 227 of the 4,000 plus active listings on the lake, the Gravois Arm covers a large geographic area and avoids concentrated saturations, which we see on the other parts of the lake, and we do see that impact revenue. The lower price points of the houses here make this an interesting sweet spot to find a break-even or even profitable lake house, and there appears to be room for smaller 1 to 2-bedroom listings, especially well-run listings offering unique amenities such as hot tubs or extra entertainment. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Catch you next time.